So welcome everybody to the City of Victor Harbour's public meeting in regards to the draft 25-26 annual business plan and budget. Thank you all for coming out this evening. My name is Victoria MacKirdy and I'm the CEO of the City of Victor Harbour, if you haven't met me before. So before I actually invite the Mayor to come up to do a brief welcome, an acknowledgement to country, I'd like to just highlight a couple of things. So there is tea and coffee and water here available. Please feel free to help yourself. I know sometimes if you're cold, it can get cold in this room, so I apologise, but please help yourself. In terms if there's an emergency, please wait to be directed by the staff and we'll go through the various exits depending where the emergency is. Toilet facilities are out in the foyer. They're clearly marked for those who haven't been here before. Just note there are cameras and audio equipment in here from both council and also private audio recording, but just noting it's actually for us, for council, is to make a record of the feedback that we received tonight. And pretty much that. Oh, and if you haven't already signed the attendance sheet, please do so if you can. I mean, it's not compulsory, but also if you give an email address, we can actually email you directly back any of the results of the consultation and feedback and keep you updated of the progress of the annual business plan and budget. So with that said, I'd like to welcome the Mayor up here to do a welcome, so thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all to tonight's public meeting. And thank you very much for coming in on a night that is a bit chilly. I'd say at least it's not raining, although we do need the rain. I would like to start by acknowledging the Ramangeri and the Narrandjeri people, the traditional custodians of this land and surrounding waters. I acknowledge their deep connection to country and I pay my respects to their elders past and present and their emerging elders. This respect is extended to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across Australia. It's really great to see so many people here to discuss our draft annual business plan and budget. It very much is a draft annual business plan and budget, and your feedback is very much appreciated, as is the feedback from the wider community, which we are out looking for today. It's really important for both myself and for my fellow council members to hear your feedback as we work to finalise this plan for the coming year. Tonight we're joined by a number of council members. We have Councillor Henderson, Councillor Schiller, Councillor Kemp here tonight. There is an apology from Councillor Mann, Councillor Burns, Councillor Quinton, Councillor Karemba, and Councillor Schofield and Councillor Mackenzie. As your Mayor, I really want to emphasise how critical community feedback is to this annual business plan and budget. It really is important. Everything that council does, from maintaining our footpaths to planning strategic, large-scale projects, is about improving your everyday experience and positioning Victor Harbour as a place of choice to both live in and work in, but also to come and visit. We know that Victor Harbour is growing, and that is quite difficult for a council that is as small as ours, with 16,000 ratepayers and residents. It is growing, and the plans forecast that we're going to be accommodating more than 13,000 new dwellings by 2051. That's a huge numbers. That's not just numbers on a page. That means more people needing housing, more people using our roads, visiting our parks, relying on our services, going to our schools, wanting to play sport, all of the different things that council does. And what it also means is that council needs to grow smartly. We need to protect our natural environment. And it was interesting, I was at a youth climate change summit today down at Currency Creek with young people from all of the schools in the region. And when they were talking about the needs of the region, they were all emphasising the importance of protecting our natural environment. It means that we need to preserve our lifestyle, and Victor Harbour has got a unique lifestyle. We don't want to grow into a Glenelg or a Gold Coast or anything like that. We need to look after the essence of what makes Victor Harbour special. But we also need to plan infrastructure and services, not just for now, but for into the future, to accommodate our growing population. Because if we don't do that, then we're going to be left behind. We're going to be reactive rather than responsive. And we're going to be playing catch up when we all of a sudden realise that we've got a community that doesn't have the infrastructure that it needs. This draft business plan reflects all of that. It includes strategic investments in things like the community sport and recreation precinct, which is an important piece of strategic infrastructure. It reflects enhances to our footpaths and open spaces, and enhances how we can attract younger families and professionals to help balance our demographic profile. One of the things that I reflected on as I was thinking about tonight was that I was hearing on the news that the state budget's just about to come out. I haven't heard any community consultations from the state government nor the federal government about what they're putting into their budget, what they're keeping out of their budget, what strategic things they're doing. Now I see state government catching up with SA Water and putting in water infrastructure. We don't want to have to be doing that, playing catch up. And we want to find out from the community about what you see our needs are being for this year and for the future. And we want to balance that, and we want to take a whole of community approach. So while there's only a small number of the community here, we'll be listening to your voices, we'll also be listening to the voices of those people that put in written submissions, those people that come to us in the shopping centre when we're there doing community consultation, the farmers market when we do community consultation there, we listen to the voices so that we can get voices from the wide group of community members, which is really important. I would really like to thank you all very much for coming out tonight and learning more about what is being proposed and sharing your view with us. We really do value your engagement and your investment in Victor Harbour's funeral. So to keep things... Victor Harbour's future. That's a faux pas, if there ever was one. Oh dear. Victor Harbour has got a very long and prosperous future, and we need you to help us shape that future. So to keep things rolling, I will hand back to Victoria. Thanks, Victoria.
Okay. All right, so just to run you through the budget, sorry, just moving that microphone. I'm going to just give you a bit of a snapshot. If it's going to move.
Can I just ask a quick question when you're doing the budget? I couldn't find it, unless I'm not looking correctly, at the profit and loss on the swimming pool centre. Couldn't find it.
It's not a profit and loss, is not contained within that, so that's the budget. There is a contribution that's in there. And we're happy to show you where that contribution, it's under sporting facilities in the budget, but there is a contribution, our contribution that we do make. In terms of the profit and loss, so to speak, for the aquatic centre, you probably see that through the 24-25 budget review. We've just done a quarter budget review and the details of that. But happy to help and answer that question after the meeting if you like. There we go. There we go. Beautiful. Okay. So similar to other forums that we've had for the budget, I'm just going to do a quick overview of what's in the document that you've very able to have a copy of. If you don't have one, there's some hard copies here for you. Just some of those key influences and some of the decisions that have shaped the budget, our capital and operating budget summaries, major initiatives and projects, and the council rates and borrowings. And then also open up for what you're here for tonight is to ask some questions and actually provide your feedback on the budget, which the members will take into consideration. So this is one component of the consultation process that we've been through. So we've done a number of promotions in our local papers and on our social media and received written submissions, and through our quarterly updates and newsletters that we're providing to residents and ratepayers. And if you're not on that list and receiving a Victor Viewpoints, then happy to share that email address with Michelle, and that puts you on that mailing list. It's a great way of staying engaged with council. So preparing the budget, the council, it's almost a bit like the Sydney Harbour Bridge painting. We just start one process and we're starting the next. We're just finished doing the third quarter review for 24-25, but the council's been well into the preparations of this budget since January. Some of you may have actually seen the consultation we did recently on the long-term financial plan and asset management plan. So the council's required to actually have a 10-year projection of its expenditure and operating and capital projects We've recently just consulted on that, and council endorsed that at Monday night's council meeting. That gives pretty much a framework for the council to work on, so it will draw a year from within that 10-year plan, and then we'll actually make some adjustments and look at what the needs are of the community throughout that actual 1 year period. But a longer term projection is available, and that's what was taken in consideration in drafting this budget. We've had a number of workshops, and we are pretty much at this consultation phase, which opened on the 12th of May and will actually close on the 12th of June. So finalisation of the budget, once all the feedback is collected, the members will have another workshop on the 11th of June, and then it will be looking to present it to council at the end of June for a council meeting decision. So some of the influences in the budget, obviously, like everyone else at home, those like household challenges that we've all been facing, the council has the same challenges in terms of increasing costs in materials, utilities, insurance. Those things have had to take into consideration, and over the past few years we've been able to, or tried to absorb many of those costs through different efficiencies and savings without cutting to actual council services. Council has incorporated 2 service reviews, so we're wanting to go through in a staged process reviewing all of our services with our community, and the first one of those, which is in this budget, is a review of our open space and environment areas in regards to the community's expectations of how you're wanting to see our open space, parks and gardens being maintained. So doing a review with the community about the level of services we're providing. So it's fine to do some anecdotal assessments of how we're going, but we actually need that data. So that's one of the reviews. And the other one is more of an internal one in regards to our financial services, of providing the support across our organisation with the changes of our new corporate system. Some of the other demands has been around the Greater Adelaide Plan. Many of you would be well aware of those projections. The Mayor talked about that. The state government sees the City of Victor Harbour very much as a satellite city. Even before the GARP was released, which was only earlier this year, you've already seen a number of major developments happening throughout Victor Harbour. We are a great place to live, but it has to be about that sustained growth. So it's up to preparing the infrastructure and services around that. Council's invested a fair bit of time and money in its urban growth management strategy, and that's more of a localised document that this community has been very much involved in. We're out for our 3rd round of consultation on that document, and that's around having a staged or a structured approach as to how this community, this council, wants to see that growth move forward. Even though we're listening and we're aware of the state government's expectations, but we need to sort of control and slow that down a little bit, because we don't have the infrastructure in place to have massive developments being built out in High Marsh Tiers Road just yet. We've got to do that in more of a staged approach, so that's still to happen. Property valuations, as you all would know, we have been in a market where it was quite stagnant for some time, but COVID certainly has changed that. And South Australia in particular, I think, has had the highest growth in property values across the country, and we've seen a significant increase, particularly in regional areas. Council's tried to accommodate that, and you'll see over time they've actually made an adjustment in the rate and the dollar, and try to be conscious of that with having a cap in our rates of up to 15% to accommodate for those significant increases. So just looking at the budget, so we have some, and I'm not going through all of them in detail, you would have that information with you, but happy to ask questions when we get to the end. So the capital projects are those capital items, infrastructure items that obviously have a lifespan longer than 12 months. So it's our roads, our footpaths, our stormwater, building, structural changes are our capital items. So council's got quite a large budget of $14.6 million. That is offset with some grant funding, depreciation and also borrowing. So we are going to be utilising some of our borrowing capacity to do some of these capital projects in this financial year. Just to touch on some of them, you will see some of these projects are already underway. So the Yilkey coastal protection, the recent storm certainly showed the need for that work. So there is a $3 million project. We've already started it, and that will progress into the 25-26 financial year, and probably beyond that as well. We are constantly looking for grant funding from the federal government to assist council in ensuring that work is completed. Again, I don't think councils alone should be wearing the cost of coastal reconstruction because of the changes in our climate. Whalers Road is in this budget for a renewal, so you will see the terms renewal and new. councils are required to do a certain percentage of its work must be renewal, and that's about maintaining our existing infrastructure, existing roads and footpaths and curbing and bridges. We must actually maintain a certain level of renewing what we currently have. It's part of our legislative requirement. But as you many would know, we have a lot of new infrastructure. We have areas in, for example, in Counter Bay that still don't have stormwater, still don't have curbing. That's all new infrastructure. So it doesn't help our renewal ratios, but it's work that needs to be done. There's quite a bit of this work which is also new. So the Crozier Road stormwater, that's at the intersection where the Subaru is. If you remember the last few storms, that's quite a significant flooding area. There is no stormwater in there. That is a new project which would need to be done. Even though it's an existing area, it's quite a bit of new work. The Arts and Cultural Precinct, that's progression of those detailed designs for a longer term construction. That construction is incorporated in our 10-year long-term financial plan right towards the end of those years, along with a number of other capital projects. Footpaths, there's $1 million in there, court resurfacing, and some of these projects are subject to funding, as I've just mentioned. In terms of operating budget, so that is more around our day-to-day operations within the Civic Centre, our services, our programs that we run with our community, maintenance, so general maintenance, if we're not actually replacing something significantly, there's a lot of work which we do from an operating perspective that is actually maintenance. We are going to be having a $4.2 million deficit, and that's where we are utilising our borrowing capacity to deliver some of these works. One of these big projects is the Recreation and Sport Precinct, and we'll obviously have questions around that later, but rather than being a capital item, because it's an investment and it's a potential public-private partnership, it's an operating contribution, so it hits our operating budget, and there is a provision of $2.5 million in this budget for a provision to that project. There's also a provision for our corporate system, a much smaller one than we've had over the years in terms of our optimisation. We are looking to go live with this new system in July this year, but it still requires a significant amount of resources to actually optimise its utilisation across the organisation. So one of the things that our Audit and Risk Committee have asked that we do, because we actually have two significant projects within this budget and we are actually utilising borrowings, all of these documents have been through our Audit and Risk Committee. They want to be able to demonstrate what does the document look like without the precinct and contribution and without the corporate system contribution, and we would be sitting at a $1.1 million deficit if those two projects were taken out. So in terms of operating initiatives, so some of these are still yet to be decided by Council. They are in the document that you have, the draft document, and this is where Council has that consideration of the feedback it's receiving and other projects it may look to bring in or others that it looks to take out, and there's a bit of an exercise around that, but Council is still at that stage. So a couple that are in that have already been endorsed is the corporate optimisation, the library hours extension. That's actually opening earlier and extending our timeframes on Saturdays, and that was based on community feedback. They want to have more access to our libraries, which is fantastic. And a contribution we provide to our Resilient Hills and Coast partnership with the 6 other councils here in that partnership. There is a provision for another FTE in our parks and our reserve maintenance area. Service level reviews, I touched on them earlier, so that's actually a provision to actually undertake those reviews, and that's quite an exercise in terms of engaging with our community, a full review of all of our services, our infrastructure, how many hectares of parks and gardens reserves we're currently maintaining, how many we are going to be seeing into the future with this growth that we've got. Future Ready strategy was a recommendation that's come from Council about how we can plan for and help to balance our demographic. We have obviously a very older demographic in Victor Harbour, which is wonderful, but we need to balance that demographic with attracting and retaining our younger people for the jobs that we need to have here to look after us all and actually deliver those services. So there's provision in there to do a strategy. There's also provision for a rating review. We are, as a council, required to do a rating review from time to time. There's a project for the Tabernacle Cemetery conservation and also a contribution to the Encounter Centre. And Council has had a contribution this financial year in regards to providing support to that community centre with the services it provides to our community, and it's considering an extension to that in the draft budget. Just as a quick snapshot in terms of what your dollar from each dollar of your rates contributes to, we're far more than just rates, roads and rubbish. There are many services that we actually deliver and provide to the community, and this just gives you a bit of a snapshot of where each cent in the dollar goes to. So just in terms of what we're projecting, so the draft budget has a 5% or an average 5% increase for this coming financial year, which is roughly about $130 a year increase to your current rates. That's made up of a general rate increase and the 1% for the precinct. The 1% for the precinct, Council did consult with its community, about the community's appetite for a new community sport and rec precinct, and it actually had gauged about the contribution that the community would be looking to contribute, and also the capacity and ability and the appetite for community to pay. We said that it would actually require a 5.2% increase to your rates over a 3-year period. The first of that increase was actually last year, so a 1.2% was actually added onto your rates last year, and that was included in the consultation. Originally, we consulted on a long-term financial plan that it would be 2% this year and 2% next year, but given that significant increase to the rates, the Council had given consideration to that and actually stretched it over 3 years, so it's 1 this year, 1.5 and 1.5, so it'll be stretched over 3 years rather than doing it all in the next 2 years, hence there is now only 1%, and we've actually reflected that in the updated long-term financial plan. So just in terms of borrowings, we talk a lot about the borrowings. So given the project for the precinct hasn't progressed as far as Council would have liked to this financial year, the money that was raised from that 1.2%, which is roughly about $400,000, was used to pay down debt of our borrowings. We're in actually a very good position. Our borrowings are down to about $5 million, which is fantastic for a council of our size. We have a ratio where we can borrow up to 90% of our operating income, and we're nowhere near that. We're sitting very low of that at the stage, and even if with these borrowings we'd still only sit at about 50.3%. So projected with the precinct, if it does move ahead and those other capital projects, we'd probably be finishing at around 16.7 million by the end of this next financial year if everything comes to fruition and we don't get the other grants funding that we're seeking to find for some of those projects. Just to give you a quick picture, Council's actually very good at utilising debt. Some of you may or may not know, so Council did borrow up to $16 million back in 05-06, I think it was, for the building of the ring road. Council built the ring road and built this building as a longer term investment for its community, and it borrowed $16 million at that time. It was able to bring that right down, and actually we have borrowed money and done other projects in the meantime. So all of the Main Street projects have actually been delivered during that time, significant amount of grant funding, and there were borrowings, and then it's been brought back down again. So Council is using its borrowings wisely in terms of stretching that intergenerational equity across our community, and so the borrowing is very much within our capabilities to deliver these projects and plan for the future, not just for today. That just gives you an indication of our long-term financial plan in terms of if we are to deliver all of the projects, and I'm not just talking about the precinct, so the precinct is part of that, so is a multi-storey car park, so is the arts and cultural precinct. There is millions of dollars worth of coastal reconstruction in there, our roads, our capital projects as per our asset management plans over the next 10 years. We will peak at about 27.3 million and then be back down to about 9 million in 10 years. So it's what ASCOSA, which is the government body that looks at the councils and our capacity and our sustainability, we've got to be able to, if we can borrow, to be able to pay down, to borrow and pay down, and we have demonstrated our capacity to do that as a council. In terms of, again, we, like a household, so your house, the value of your house and your ability to borrow and have a mortgage is a simpler way of putting it. There is about $493 million worth of assets that this community owns, and at the moment we have $5 million borrowed. Our income is around about $45 million a year, and we project, and that's not current, but we would project at our highest point we would have $27 million borrowed, which is still below our target ratio, which is 90%, and they're the ratios that council looks to work within, because we're not like a profit-making business. If we were actually having a surplus, a massive surplus every year, then we are overrating you, and that is not what the council should be doing. So, just to recap, council's trying to actually plan for, there is significant growth, as you would see around you, not just now, but projected, and we need to make sure we've got the infrastructure and facilities and services for that community. The council's taking lots of things into consideration. Already there is lots of talk and discussion amongst members about some of the capital projects that are in the current budget and the current draft, about whether some of those need to come out, push them out. They have the capacity to do that. Our asset management plans have a whole range of works and projects that need to be done, and there are times, depending on priorities, and we use a matrix around safety and accessibility and just in terms of community feedback also, for the chamber to make those decisions of whether something needs to be brought forward from the asset management plans or pushed out depending on those needs. So they're still having those conversations. So, with that said, I'm going to open up the forum because that's what you're here for, not to listen to me, but it's your opportunity to give the feedback, ask any questions. I would like to just introduce some of the staff that are here. So standing up is Jodie Roberts. Jodie Roberts is our Director of Infrastructure and Environment and our engineer on hand, so she will be able to answer most of your questions around the capital projects. We have Steph, who is our Finance Manager and acting for Kelly Knight-Stacey, who is currently away on leave and will hopefully be able to answer any of our finance questions. Graham Pathouse, our Director of Community and Development, and Karen Rokoczynski, who is our Director of Customer and Corporate Services. Our members are here also and would welcome any of your questions, but I'll open up the floor and just a few little rules of engagement. I just ask your questions respectfully. If I can answer them or we can answer them, we absolutely will. I'll probably take 1 or 2 questions from each person and keep it moving. Doesn't mean I won't come back to you if you have more questions, but give everyone an opportunity to ask those questions. If we can't ask them tonight, we'll take them on notice and we will give you a written response and respond to you accordingly. So Michelle's got a microphone. I ask you to speak into the microphone. That way it helps Lance with the recording, it helps with us with the recording, and we can hear what you're saying. So I'm going to open up and I can see Mr. Klimpson has a question. So I'm going to go straight to Mr. Klimpson.
Yes, thanks for this chance to ask a question. I see waste management is 6 cents allocated for waste management and economic growth 4 cents. Now, have you any idea for a ratepayer when they go to the Gore tip, how much it costs them for a trailer load of rubbish?
Well, it would depend on what your trailer load of rubbish is.
Well, let's take an 85 trailer, field level. How much would you say?
I wouldn't know off the top of the head. I know lots of things, but not that. So that 6 cents is obviously in terms of the collection of your recycling, your green waste and your general waste. That's what that actual contribution is. And yes, there is a fee for service for waste to landfill, but where we try to ensure and encourage our community to recycle or using the green bins. But if you can't, then that's what the facility is there for.
Right. So what I'm getting at is 6 cents allocated for waste management. Mm-hmm. I think maybe it should be more because, as I said, it's very expensive. And just a ballpark figure, but what would you say? 85 trailer, level loaded?
Maybe $65.
How much?
Maybe $65. I haven't been to the dump very often.
Maybe over 200. I think it's about 260.
Well, the last one I took was out. I don't know the cost, but I would love to know your point. I mean, council could look to subsidise. Is that what you're looking? That council should subsidise more of the waste?
Is that sufficient 6 cents when you're paying 4 cents to encourage people to come and live in Victor Harbour? I didn't realise there was any sort of lack of encouragement.
Well, economic development is not about encouraging people to live in Victor Harbour. So economic development includes our contribution to Business Victor Harbour. So council provides $156,000 a year to Business Victor Harbour to support our chamber commerce and our businesses. It's also about our visitor centre, festival and events, New Year's Eve. It's about $400,000 that's raised through the differential, which is the economic development driver.
Yes, I know it's so easy to talk glibly about these $100,000 here and there. But as I said, the waste management, when ratepayers have to pay such a cost amount of money to use them, facility, and it's only 6 cents. Yet here we have 4 cents going to encouraging people to come and live there.
Yep. I believe the Mayor wants to help with the response.
Just responding to that, I know that there has been questions from the community about council doing hard rubbish collections and helping with collections, and we've certainly taken that seriously. And as a chamber, we've asked to find out about how much that would cost. It's a significant cost for Fluorio Waste Services and for council, and what it would mean is that your rates actually would go up to cover that cost. So, you know, again, this is a balancing act. And you have a significant rubbish collection here through Fluorio Waste. We share that with Yankalilla and Alexandrina and Kangaroo Island to keep the costs down. But if we were to do more in terms of waste, then that would be costing us more, and that cost would end up costing you more. So it's about that balance.
You're prepared to spend 11.7 million on the precinct when hard rubbish removal happens in every council. And I know, you know, and sometimes twice a year, but that's fairly rare. But
It doesn't happen in every council. There are some councils that deliver it.
Yeah. Practice here back in 1998, and I don't think it's happened since 2000. But I mean, even if you did it maybe every 3 or 4 years, I mean, you couldn't do it yearly, but normally it's standard practice for majority of councils to have a hard rubbish removal. I agree with this guy about.
Yeah, no, and we'll take that on board in terms of that feedback, and it has been an item that the Chamber has discussed and costed. They've actually tried to look at some initiatives. Many councils now are referring back to the circular economy, encouraging businesses where you can actually, on Maud Street, you can actually take many of your items in terms of metal that you can actually get money for, your recyclables and your card. I know it doesn't accommodate for everybody, but happy to take that feedback on board and whether council can consider costing that, whether it's 1 or 2 years. But not every council, many councils have actually removed their hard waste collection. Some have introduced it and they do it as a fee for service. So you can dial up and actually get it picked up from home. So there's many different options and we can actually have a look at those. Mr Clemson, you had another question?
It was about the economic growth, where we need to spend 4 cents to encourage people to come and live here. When I first came and lived here, I was stunned to realise that there were so many beaches you couldn't walk on because it was packed high with seaweed, which I thought was a bit of a health hazard. I've discussed this with both Moira and Henderson and the Mayor, and apparently it's just too expensive to remove the seaweed.
It's not too expensive. We need the approval from the Environment Protection Authority. We can't just bulldoze the beaches of seaweed. It's there for a reason. It's there to protect our coastlines. And I know I've actually been privy to a significant amount of correspondence we've had with you, Mr Clemson, about that matter. Yeah. And I think we've probably explained the council's position, and it's not just for council to clear the beaches of seaweed. It's an environment protection requirement. It's legislated. We can't. We have to seek approval before we do it ourselves. Any works requires approval.
Actually, I'm getting to a stage where I think maybe the council perhaps could invest 4 cents in the dollar, encourage me to leave Victor Harbour with the indifference it shows the facilities we've got here, which are just being neglected. Anyway.
I'll move to another gentleman. We've got some questions. Thank you.
Gary Bolt. I'm a ratepayer at Fuller East Road. We've had 40 years living there, and we finally got a surface on the road which is safe and less dusty. I'm really pleased about that. It's been good that the council have given this. That's about the only thing we've ever got at our property over 40 years, except for garbage collection and recycling. This is costing me 3 times approximately the rates that my daughter pays at Glenalta. Her rates are 1/3 approximately of ours. Now, that's a very high rate we're paying, and I'm concerned about the rates increasing by $2 million approximately. Where is the allocation? So if you can answer that, then I've got a question about about the money.
Okay, so every council, the 68 councils across the state, their rate setting is based on the council themselves. And yes, Victor Harbour has been compared in terms of our higher rate, but also we are a growth council. And your road and your rubbish is one part of the tax, so your rates are a tax. And it also delivers the library, the community services, the roads, the lighting, the footpath, all the things that council does. Every ratepayer pays that tax and it goes to delivering those services. You may not always use them. There may be times that you do and you don't. But all of the roads or council roads are also what council uses those rates for. And yes, different councils have a different rate in the dollar. Some well-established councils that aren't building new infrastructure constantly don't have as higher rates. But also that's the choice we make and the responsibility that council has in terms of what it needs to deliver. Part of the service level reviews that we're looking to do is looking at hearing from the community about their expectations of what they want and the levels of services they do and don't want. So unfortunately, that is what it is in terms of living here in Victor Harbour, and every council is different. There isn't a set one council rate that's applied. It's depending on what's delivered. This council delivers a lot of services that metro councils get delivered by the state government because we don't have the resourcing and the support down here because we are more regionally focused.
Okay, I understand about the differences in developed suburbs and here more development occurring. Given that, what sort of allowance has been made in future budgets for income from the new housing developments that are occurring, for example, the Ocean and Clifton?
Yep, so some of them are incorporated in that 10-year long-term financial plan in terms of projected income.
Is that in the...
No, so the budget that we're talking about now is an annual budget for a point in time for that year. The long-term financial plan incorporates all the works that we have to keep delivering, but also the projected growth that we will see happening and the projected income. It is built in after we've actually delivered the precinct with the increases of the additional 1 and 1.2, I think it's about a 2.5% or 3% increase is built in for the next 10 years of a projected rate rise because of that growth. And I'll go back to those slides. There's a 1.3% growth that was in there, but that's about the income. That's not just from rate rises. That's because we've had about 150 new properties. They're new ratepayers. That increases our income. But the others are around the actual valuation of your property, and that actually is where the rates are applied. So we've projected that growth, but our challenge also is some of that is not based on every household will be rated. Some of those villages, so like Rosetta and Best Life, and there's one at Seascape and there's one at Ocean, are a gated retirement village. They are under the Residential Parks Act and they may have about 300 properties in them. They are rated differently. It doesn't provide the same sort of income because there is one rate that the developer has. There's one fixed charge, and then that developer will then divvy up the rates with those properties. So there's a lower rate in those villages. While they're maintained, their roads and footpaths are maintained within the village and they aren't handed to council as a gift or an asset. Once those members of those community leave those villages, they still access and utilise the services. That is a challenge for this council because we have a number of those villages. They are an affordable way of living. They are fantastic for our community, but it attracts an older population and it doesn't help with the rates, income and all the services and delivery things that we need to do.
Okay, there's a couple of things you might just quickly tell me. I'm trying to work out how much the rate draft budget income, 32,459,000, how much of that is due to capital growth and how much of it is due to council rate increase?
I probably need to take that on notice. I don't think I can work that out. We can work it out in terms of what properties, whether it's primary produce and industry, commercial, residential properties, that's broken down.
The capital value increase across the state.
Yeah, there has.
Have you lowered the percentage rate?
This year we haven't lowered the rate in the dollar. We have in previous years because the increase has been significant. We get a listing from the Valuer Generals and we can have a look at the number of properties that have increased in value. And that's why we can determine an average rate increase. There are some properties that haven't actually increased in value, they won't see an increase in their rates at all. There are some that have increased by 15 to 27%, but they will be capped at the cap of 15% that council has. And there's others that sit within those other ratios, and that's where we can say it's an average rate increase of 6%. But we do get that data of where we're seeing those increases. It's slowed down compared to what it was between 2021 and 24. There was significant increases. We have seen that slow a bit.
And just quickly, finally, can you tell me, refer me what page it is where the income for the precinct is shown? Because clearly it's 1/5 of the rates, and so therefore it should be about 6.4 million. Where does that show as?
So there isn't council will be using borrowings to do its contribution to the precinct. It's under its negotiations. It's a public-private partnership. Council's contribution is 11.7 million. It is still negotiating whether it will be the operator of the Rec and Sport precinct. There are discussions. One model is around an operator like a Belgravia who would operate it. The other model is around council being the operator and the tenant of the facility. The council is still considering those. So there is no income from the Rec and Sport precinct. There is a contribution at this stage. In the long-term financial plan, though, if it does come to fruition and there is income from the other properties on that site, if the partnership comes to fruition, there will be a ground lease for the elements of the childcare, allied health and the food and beverage, and there will be rates associated with that, and they are incorporated into the draft long-term financial plan, in the long-term financial plan, but they're not in that document because we are not at that stage yet.
Well, my point that I'm missing though is 20% of the rates charged is put down as for the precinct. So that money...
Not 20%.
Well, it clearly shows here 4% income for general and 1% precinct.
1%.
Well, I'll just find it.
Yeah, there's a 1% rate increase for the precinct. Not 20% of the income though.
I see. So 1% of the increase, you're right. Okay.
I'll just open up for a couple more questions. I've got this lady at the back here. I don't know what to hear your name, and then I've got Andrew.
This is going on from this gentleman's question about the precinct. I just want to know that obviously the council still owns the land.
Correct.
Will be leasing it to the developer to build.
Correct.
The site. We'll be contributing 11.7 million of our money, the ratepayers' money.
Correct.
Which is really going to be that 1%, which is above current CPI. The question is, in this lease, first of all, the developer won't own the land, therefore he doesn't pay council rates.
Yes, they will pay council rates on their commercial offerings. So on the childcare, the allied health, the food and beverage, and the there's an indoor sporting area that will be theirs. They will pay a ground lease and rates on those.
So they can do that even though the developer doesn't own the land?
Correct.
And that will be in the lease agreement?
Correct.
Right. So it's actually a lease agreement that's where the money will be coming, whatever you're going to get every year. Now that's the question I need to ask, is that the lease agreement, we don't seem to be privileged to any projection of what you think it will be annually that we will get. What's basically going to be our rate of return that we're going to get on the $11.7 million we're injecting in that lease agreement? How much are we going to get back?
Well, again, you're not going to get a return on it. You're going to get a $25 million community rec and sport facility for the community, and also then you'll be getting the income from those other sites. The agreement for lease has not been finalised as yet. That is one part of the negotiations Council is considering. Council is at the stage where it's actually finalising a business case for Council being the operator, because the consultation we've done with a number of the key stakeholder groups is that they would prefer the Council to be the operator than a Belgravia, a private operator. Council is doing a business case right now on that, and those two models will be put into a prudential report, which is Council's required to do as part of its decision making. Once and if it makes a decision, then we would then start drafting the agreement for lease as to what that looks like, depending on the model council goes down.
And is it still going to be about 149-year lease?
At the moment, the developer is still looking at a 99-year lease.
Still with an extension period?
They are seeking extensions, and we are still negotiating those. Nothing is in an agreement for lease as yet.
Right, so really it's, when you say there's not really going to be council rates as such, it will be part of the agreement, the lease agreement.
No, there will be council rates. The agreement for lease will be very much built around what they can and can't do on the site, council's ability to run and manage the recreation component, the community component. But within the agreement for lease, but almost separate too, it will be rated in terms with other properties, and the ground lease payments will also be part of that.
Because he's not going to be able to pay land tax. This doesn't involve our council, but he won't have to pay land tax.
Well, he's not buying the land.
Well, that's right. So basically the state government's not going to get anything from it if they decide to give grants. They won't get anything back for that. So are you going to eventually tell us exactly how much the lease is going to be?
Absolutely. I mean, council has been very transparent. If anything, it's probably the most transparent negotiations. We know who the developer is, which is Accord, it's a South Australian company. We know who the preferred operator is, which is Belgravia. And we're having regular stakeholder meetings with the basketball, the gymnastics, key stakeholders and users about the design. We're actually partway through the detailed design of the site or the facility, the rec and sport component of it. And absolutely, council will be negotiating all those other elements as it progresses.
And so in this negotiation process, what will happen in regard to if the developer, and they do go broke, developer goes broke, the $11.7 million, will that be returned directly to the ratepayer?
Well, given that council still owns the land, council will be the landlord as such, and those are the things that will be built into the agreement for lease. And that's the due diligence council needs to ensure that it protects the community, whether the developer goes broke, whether it sells it to another owner, that will be correct. That's why they want a 99-year lease. The developer's not going to invest its money in our region unless it wants some form of benefit from it, but it's also going to want to invest in our community because it wants to actually have the patronage and actually support our community. Otherwise, councils are the ones having to deliver, and you've touched on it before, about the delivery of an aquatic facility that seems to cause a little bit of rumbling in our community, but councils or governments are the ones that deliver facilities that private sector aren't prepared to do because they have to be offset by rates, tax, incomes to ensure that they are there for our community. It's about that community wellbeing and what it provides.
Right, because are you aware that Mount Barker didn't contribute all of the money? I think it's around about $8 million to their sporting facility. It's currently running at a loss of $400,000 a year, and they have a median age group of 39. We've got a median around 59, 60, so they've definitely got plenty of people who want to use a sports facility. Are you aware of that their loss is $400,000, and is that a possibility that this... Well,
that would be their... I don't know, I'm not at Mount Barker, but they would probably be providing a contribution like we do for most other sporting facilities
$8 million
that are here.
Came from government grants, whatever. So they only put $8 million in, we're putting in 11.7, which is a hell of a lot more. So at the end of the day, just wanting to know whether this is going to be viable, because
that's what the business case and the Prudential report is about. And I'm conscious of other people having other questions.
One more question. The swimming pool runs at a loss. Am I still correct on that?
The swimming pool is actually contributed to by both Alexandrina. Was never to run at a profit.
I'm not talking about a profit, I'm talking about running even. Just even.
Again, there is still a contribution that's made by both of those councils.
Right, so you've got that. Well, obviously it's nice to have the horse-drawn tram that runs at a loss. What I'm trying to look at is what are you actually doing as a council that you're actually making a profit? If not, I'm not so much concerned about the profit, but are you breaking even on any of the projects you put your money into?
All the other services that are delivered for this community are clearly articulated in your annual business plan and budget. The library doesn't make a profit, and it contributes the council. It doesn't make any money. No one pays for a book. So the councils, your taxes, deliver these services. And yes, council's remit is to try and reduce that contribution and where it can, but there are many services that are still require a contribution of our taxes to ensure they're delivered for the whole community.
So the thing is that you're saying there's going to be this population growth. What's the big hurry to get this when we really don't have the population yet, and we really don't have we don't have a median population age group of 39 that's likely to use.
This community has actually been advocating for a new Reckonsport precinct prior to my time. I inherited it coming into this organisation in 2018. So the community has actually been wanting a Reckonsport facility, an indoor Reckonsport facility, for some time.
Right, but the point of the matter is you've got to, okay, just one last
And it is the number one in the community consultation that we've just done with the community. It's the number one priority key project this community said they would like.
Okay, when you get to the lease agreement and you've got all the information, will you have another consultation process so that we know exactly how much that lease agreement is going to be, so we know how much when we go to contribute the 11.7 million?
Your council will keep you informed as it progresses through its decision making on this project.
Consultation process to discuss.
I can't predict whether you're going to have a consultation on the lease agreement, but you'll probably have another consultation maybe around who is the operator. But there will be more consultation in regards to next year's budget.
I think you need to have one because it's 11.7 million. I'm suggesting that that's what you do. That when you get to that stage where you've got the lease, you know how much money, we need to know how much money you're going to get from that lease.
Well, council's already consulted on its contribution of $11.7 million. It's done it more than once. Hence, the long-term financial plan had it in there. The previous long-term financial plan had it in there. It has consulted. It actually asked the community, are you looking at a $20 million contribution or a $10 million contribution? And the community came back with its preference was around the 10 million, and it was prepared to have an increase in its rates. That was a consultation that's been done over the last 2 years.
Well, that money actually would probably help the developer with his deposit when he goes to raise the money to do it. But anyway, that's another story.
Right, I'm going to go to other.
But what I just need to know from you is, will you consider looking at a consultation when you get to the lease? We know how much money, because in Adelaide, I know exactly in the CBD of Adelaide what their leases are and how much revenue they're going.
It's not for me to decide whether the council is here, members are here, and they're hearing you. So they're hearing, and it's up to them to make that as a decision. So thank you very much. Andrew, you had some questions. Michelle's just bringing you the microphone.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Victoria. I'd just like to make a couple of comments first up about this annual work plan and budget. And I like to best describe the so-called community consultation process over this. And in fact, this year we have seen community consultation being completely discarded by the leadership of this council and by yourself as well.
I'm curious as to how you can say that. Like, give me an example.
Well, we came to two major community consultations this year. One was about whether people wanted the sport and rec complex. 70% of the people said no. When it came back to the chamber, it was the results of there were excuses made. Oh, it was only 150 people said that. And so that's, some infinitesimal percentage of the Victor Harbour population. So that can't be accurate. So we're going to push ahead with what we want to do, which is to have this $46 million project. Secondly, I followed just a month or two after that was the revocation of the land. Do we want to, as a community, give away a prime piece of real estate to a developer for potentially 150 years? And the answer coming back was also pretty much 70% people said, hell no. What happened? It came back to the chamber, it was manipulated here, and then we got it all passed. No, it's okay, we don't need to take any notice of that. The community consultation process this year have taken a real hit. People are saying what they were saying before. The council doesn't listen to us. They don't listen to us. So here's a classic example, twice in a couple of months, whereby no, the direction that the leadership wanted this to go,
Correct.
You get yourself into a huge amount of trouble because of it, and you're not bringing the community along. I come to another aspect, that's just a comment. Now I have some questions. In relation to the 4 years ago now, this council gave you the delegated authority to implement the corporate systems implementation project. At the time, because I was on council and deeply involved in that, at the time it was that the council was going to produce key performance indicators on what was going on with that project. Very quickly we find out, no, it's all in confidence, it's not ready, we can't produce it right now. And I even remember the acting CEO at the time saying in the chamber, and it's on the record, saying, people don't want to know about a computer program, all they're interested in is rates and rubbish. But the computer program, this is one that was originally forecast to cost $5 million, now it's costing closer to $9 million, and it's still going on. But we know nothing about this project for the last 4 years. We've had presentations
given by various people that are sort of high-level overhead stuff, but no details and no action. Now, one of the main things that's supposed to come out of that corporate systems implementation project was that we would, through the process of raising productivity in the council staff and their contractors, would be raising productivity. What does productivity mean? It's, put simply, doing more with less. Or more with the same amount of money, but doing it with less as well.
Have you got some questions, Andrew?
Yeah.
Be good. Because I know there's other people that may want to ask some questions.
Yeah. You signed off you signed off on a enterprise bargaining agreement 3 years ago that was full of references to productivity and how it was going to be raised. When are we going to see, my question is, when are we going to see the fruits of that investment in those productivity increases, which should then lower the costs and lower rates?
Well, I can't promise they're going to lower rates. I can say that we are finding efficiencies, and we've already found probably $500,000 worth of efficiencies, and we've not actually implemented the entirety of the new corporate system. It's still being implemented, and there will be efficiencies, and we've already found them. Not right across the board, and I've said even in this chamber, some of those efficiencies are being redirected to areas where we do need arms and legs in our open spaces and our operations team, because the area is growing and a computer system is not going to change the amount of work that needs to be done on our field staff. I think you've made a lot of claims or opinions, and I know when you were on council, Andrew, you were privy to all of that information. You didn't get re-elected, hence you don't get the detail that the elected body gets, and they have all that information to actually make those decisions. That's why they were elected. So we provide as much and a significant amount of information for our community on all of those elements and
how do
items that
they
you've
do
listed.
that, Victoria? Now, come on, this business about saying, oh, they're going to provide information to the community. How do they do that?
No, they have been elected to make decisions on your behalf.
Yes.
That's the democratic system. You elected 10 elected members to be your decision makers as a community, and they are privy to that information, as you were when you were an elected member, similar to Terry, similar to Peter. You are aware of the information that's shared and the detail that is shared.
But the people in this community are spending, nearly $10 million on a corporate systems project.
It's not 10 million, it's not 9 million, and yes, it's a significant amount of money, and yes, it would probably equate to just under $8 million by the time it is completely implemented. And yes, because times have changed, technology has progressed significantly. You were the one, and I applaud you for your decision, that was actually fully behind the decision to actually go down that path. It takes time, and we are still implementing it, and there are efficiencies, and there will be more efficiencies once it's finished being implemented.
If you have some efficiencies that you've identified, why don't you let us know what they are?
I have. I've actually reported back to council on several occasions. They're actually in council reports. We've actually saved on FTEs. We've found reduction in FTEs in our records management system. We're finding efficiencies in other areas because they've been streamlined because of the corporate system. I'm required to, and even with the optimisation phase, I'm required to report to the chamber on, I think it was a quarterly basis, I can't remember how often, in regards to those savings and efficiencies. They are contained in my performance review reports, which was only one last week. It's a very detailed report on every single element of every KPI that I'm required to deliver. I have my performance reviews filmed sometimes. Like, they are all open meetings. They are not closed. My reviews on delivery and KPIs are all open to the community.
Why can't we have that for the corporate systems project?
You do. It's in those documents.
I'd like to see that, because I try to follow and, what is happening, but I don't see that. I don't see that at all. And I think that the level of demand in the community for more transparency, for more, honest reporting on what's going on is very large. And particularly, if we have these investments in, there ought to be a rate of return on those investments, and where is it? Where are the KPIs for the corporate systems project? I don't think you've ever printed those.
Well, I can tell you now, this council has grown significantly in area. We haven't grown significantly in administration because we've been able to continue to absorb and deliver more services and more programs for a growing community. Our population is near 16,900, which has been a significant growth from when I first started here. It's going to grow even more.
I'd like to just add to what Andrew said, and I've got some figures here. Just this open. From council website in relation to the questions for the public last year, the consultations. On the budget last year, there were 90 respondents. 10 were for the budget and 80 against. On the precinct last year, there were 89 respondents, 6 were for it, 77 against, and 6 unsure. Now, both of those consultations were totally, in my opinion, ignored by council. Why are we even here tonight? I don't know. It's a waste of time giving our wishes to council. The attitude I find of council is rather depressing. The only reason I can see the way council acts like they do is to generate business for the mental health profession.
Well, again, consultation is not a vote, and I think we had this discussion last time. I remember standing over there. So councils are required, unlike the state and federal government, to engage with its community, to consult. And sometimes we're informing you, sometimes we're seeking feedback. It's the only time you vote is when you vote in your elected members. And yes, there were, of those 90 people, of 16,900 people that live here, that actually gave of their time and their energy and their interest to actually give some feedback. But it doesn't mean council needs to take that into consideration. The council reads every one of those comments in considering, but it had then has, and Andrew's just pointed out, it's privy to so much more information than just that in terms of its decision making. So if it made all of its decisions based on the 90 people that actually bother to give of their time to give the feedback, then they wouldn't be doing their job properly. They wouldn't be doing their due diligence. They need to take it into consideration, but it doesn't determine their decision.
Can I ask, how has the council determined that the community want the precinct?
It has engaged through various reports, so it's done surveys and consultation with users, with the community. It's done a community satisfaction 3 in 22, 23 and 25 of key projects that it would like the community to consider, and that's statistically analysed. So it's about 400 to 500 people which are randomly selected, a demographic distribution. We speak to our non-resident ratepayers to actually gauge.
Was that a precinct or a recreation centre that you're talking about?
That was all of them. That was
for... There's a big difference, isn't there?
No, but the recreation precinct has always been on that list, and it's always been a priority within that consultation. So it takes data from various forms. It's actually consulted with the community in regards to the size. I mean, we've gone from, in my time, a $48 million project that council was going to deliver, to council was trying to find the tin shed model, to council actually went out for an expression of interest to say that the ratepayers shouldn't be forking the whole cost of this if we're able to have a partnership with a developer and we get a balance of the facilities that we need for our community, but it's not at a huge expense to our ratepayers. So the council has been doing a lot of consultation with its community over a long period of time and it's not just this council, the previous council had made the same decision as in progressing the development of a rec and sport facility.
But having decided, the council is, that the precinct would be the model, has there been have you been able to ascertain public opinion on its need?
The last consultation we just did earlier this year, it was still a priority. It was still rated at about 62% of the community thought it as a priority.
Figures on that?
That was it was an independently community survey that was done by McGregor. Was it McGregor? New Focus.
How many people here contributed to that?
It's a random survey.
Oh, random. So a bit like the meeting, where you have 90 people.
Anyway, we can have a criticism of council, but I guess that's not the outcome of what we're trying to achieve. Like, the annual business plan and budget has been presented. It's an opportunity to talk about the annual business plan and budget. I'm happy to take any feedback on that. But generally, if people want to have a criticism of council, you know, you can, but it's not going to be helpful in this forum. So I'm just going to go to this lady first. Andrew, you've already spoken, so I'll let some other people speak first.
Hi, I'm Amanda Triddle, live in Victor Harbour. I have a question, it's related to the precinct, I'm sorry.
No, precinct's in the budget, so that's okay.
But I have a question related to it. Okay, so I've been watching this project from when it first came out, and saw, it was several years ago now, the outline of the land it was going to use and what it was actually going to provide. My concern is that I can see why, probably from a point of economics and the commercial attitude, is that you've ended up with something where we've got a childcare centre and we've got a tavern and we've got a gym. Now, originally the whole point was this was something that was provided for the community, a basketball court and a gymnastics arena, and perhaps something where there might have been some sort of cafe or something, facilities for those who were there. My concern is that we've suddenly taken this piece of land, which once it's gone and used for this, it's gone. I mean, it was originally going to have some walks around it, it was going to have a community garden, the dragon boat people were going to have a shed on it for the boat, all sorts of things were going to be included, they're gone. And now what we've got is we've got a tavern and we've got a childcare centre on what is council land. It's a beautiful piece of land, and it was one thing to take part of it and put a sporting facility on it, and it's changed. And what my concern is that the change happened without real consultation. From one moment there was this plan put forward that showed how much of the land was going to be used and what it was going to be used for. The next thing, it's gone out to tender and for interest for private people to come in and build it, and they suddenly got a tavern on it and a childcare centre. The childcare centre we may need, but I'm concerned that it's where it is. I'm also concerned that there's a tavern there. Why do we need another tavern?
It's not a tavern, it's a food and beverage. It does refer to as a tavern.
Well, I mean, the food and beverage is a separate building. How do we need that when we have very close by, you've got you've also got across the road, you've got a sporting facility that's got a new, that's been upgraded with football ground there. You've got the golf club that provides, and the town as well. It just seems to me that we're spending money or allowing them to take land that's very precious because we don't have that much open space and put what I think is unnecessary things there. I get that we may need to upgrade our sporting facilities, but I also am concerned at this point in time to be upping our rates when people are struggling. We're talking about a community that are an ageing community. We haven't got young people here now so much, and they're on fixed incomes. They're not something, they can't just go out to work anymore. You know, the cost of living is going up still for those who are pensioners, as much as for anybody else, but we're not in a position where they go up. You know, the incomes is static often, or your costs are still, going up, but you're not able to go out to work and get extra income from anywhere. So I think the addition of this 1% on the rates is not easy for most people. I think we're not looking to what we've got now. I'm also concerned that I heard that there is a possibility that some of the new housing that's going up, when the young people buy those properties, they won't have to pay rates for a while. Now, that's all very well, and yes, we want to encourage people. On the other hand, somebody's got to pay the rates, somebody's got to pay for all the infrastructure, so that means that the existing residents may have to pay extra to support new people coming in. I'm not sure that seems to me a very wise move.
Thank you for your feedback. Does anyone else have any feedback on the budget? So I'm conscious of time. We were to finish here at 7, but Terry?
Okay, it's only just a quick couple of comments and maybe things for you to consider. With the aquatic centre, in the first instance, there's been many problems with its design, from its maintenance, right from day one. Yet we see many people can't use it due to the solar panels on the top are not working efficiently. I'm wondering how much is it going to cost in the future? Alexandrina Council, I believe, is not very happy with it at the moment. I believe you are the now chair of that board, and I really would like to see publicly a report, if you like, that we can look at it and say, well, it's going to cost X amount, or this is where it's going in the future. That's one. The second one is that the cost of the group class action for the asbestos that our Regional Waste Authority is facing. I believe it is now getting into a fair few $1 million, and has the council allocated the money, and what's the latest update on that? You know, we've got an issue that in the future, and I can see in the future, that all three councils, that is Yankanilla, Alexandrina and Victor Harbour, will eventually join together. It may not happen for 5 or 6 years, but I believe in the future that will happen. And at the moment, though, is the three councils, other than those two projects that I've just mentioned, is the three councils also working on group dynamics, for want of a better word, of computer things, etc., using the machinery. You know,
Do you want me to answer that? So I'll take on note your questions around the FRAC, and obviously there will be open reports around that. The facility is actually doing very well. We're actually about to go out for an open public tender for a new management contract, and we're in the process of actually drafting that. We've actually a very good working relationship with Alexandrina Council, and I think that's actually the new joint venture is actually working very, very well. There's some capital works to be undertaken shortly on the pool, but that's just general maintenance, normal maintenance of a facility that's now 8 years old. And we're actually looking at some energy efficiency audit is being done in regards to actually finding ways of reducing its cost. It's a fully electric facility, and with electricity prices, that seems to be the biggest drawing card. But I'm happy to follow up in regards to an update or a community update on that one. Regarding Frawa, the Waste Authority, we've had an update that the asbestos project, they're actually nearing to completion in regards to the number of properties they've actually had to remediate. But in terms of the class action, I don't have a current update, and happy to take that on notice. The council did get an update through Simon Grenfell only just recently. I know all 4 councils have had updates in regards to that. And our contribution, the original contribution that we provided, hasn't increased or changed. That was back from 23, I think it was a $3 million contribution that this council had to make in terms of the remediation requirements, but that hasn't changed at this stage. In regards to, can't agree with you more, Terry. I think a South Coast Council would definitely be on the cards. I've been a huge advocate even when I was at Alexandrina Council. I think there is huge efficiencies in terms of working or amalgamating or working together or a different structure. And yes, we do a lot together. We have merged our development assessments panel, so we have a Fluorio regional assessment panel now. We have one panel. We have a combined building facilities services. We do jointly with Alexandrina Council. We've reduced our resourcing in-house because we're actually utilising the resources of Alexandrina Council. We are sharing machinery use with Yankalilla Council. We do a lot of optimisation with the corporate system with Alexandrina. They're using Tech One. Unfortunately, Yankalilla went with Civica, so we can't utilise their system. But we have had, with the change of new CEO, which I was involved in the recruitment with Andrew McDonald, we have had a huge amount of collaboration and shared resourcing, and we hope to continue doing that with our neighbouring councils, because it is a huge efficiency for this council to do more together. Peter.
Is it possible
and then
that,
Gavin.
I don't know whether I need that.
Yep.
Is it possible that people have been deceived or misled by the title Sport and Recreation Facility when there's only one building, which is that? And,
Well, it's always been referred to as a sport and recreation precinct.
well, yes, but that's what they're voting on. They're thinking sport and recreation. They're not thinking about a facility for food and beverage. They're not considering anything else. Why can't we be more open and more specific? And I do agree with the comments made about your consultation in the Woolworths Mall, where people are just in a hurry to walk straight past you, and staff are reluctant to go and say, hey, take one of these. Only people like our good mayor are very keen to step up and say, hello, look at what we're doing.
We've
It's
done
very
many of the
random.
consultation. I've been at the markets, we've been in the supermarket, we've been in a number of locations. We've done some great forums in here with the urban growth management strategy, where we've had a significant amount of people attend, and at the town hall. So I think we've done a huge amount of consultation over this last few years, particularly in the last 12 months. In one way, we felt the community may have been over-consulted with, because we've had so many projects being consulted on.
Yes, we have indeed. But I think when you talk to people about sport and recreation, it is definitely a misleading, definitely. Other than that, why are the minutes and the meetings of the the swimming pool minutes of the board confidential, and the meetings confidential? Why are they held in confidence?
Well, it's a joint venture committee. It's different to a committee of council, but we have actually, we're having discussions now about actually providing community with public update and updating the website. So it's similar to when the authority was around, that you can actually access and see the information available. So we're going through that process at the moment.
Nothing to hide there then?
No, there's not
For
anything to
Regional
hide.
Waste Authority also in confidence and minutes
The Waste
in
Authority
confidence?
is in confidence. It's a
Why?
subsidiary. It's the way in which they have developed their charter, and they feel they're a commercial operation in terms of the decisions that they're making from that perspective.
It gets a bit tricky, doesn't it? There's far too much to talk about. We don't have time. We can't afford the building any longer, and these people don't want to stay. They've got to go home now, don't they?
I don't know, but I'm just going to go to Gavin, unless you've got any other questions, Peter.
No, thanks very much.
No
for
worries,
answering.
thank you.
Thanks, Victoria. Gavin Daniel, resident of Victor Harbour, ratepayer. I'd just like to, from a personal point of view, a parent's point of view, there's a couple of ideas or concepts of what's actually around with the rec centre. So it's not just two sports. Number one, there's numerous amounts of sports that are potentially going to be able to utilise that precinct. The youth of Victor Harbour need something like this, and we've been crying out for it I've been here for 24 years, and we've been crying out for it personally from that time point. So the land will still be owned by council. It will have a purpose, but Victor Harbour, the youth of Victor Harbour, the growth of Victor Harbour needs something like this, and personally I think it should be double the size, not the size that is being done, but we can't afford that. So that's the first one. A comment that won't be popular, but I think if there was a mention about there was 90 submissions, 80 of those were against whatever they were against. I think if we head down that path, that we listen to a minority, not the majority, I think we've got major problems for our district. And finally, the budget that we're here to talk about, I think it's a responsible budget. Again, if we had more people living down here and we didn't have fixed incomes and we had more people with more income, we'd be able to spend more, because the region certainly needs to spend more rather than less.
Thank you. Did anyone else who hasn't had an opportunity to speak have any questions? Noting we're nearing to 7, this gentleman here, thank you.
Yeah, my name's Tony Eden. I'm part of the committee for the Victor Harbour Oval Planning Group. I represent the Victor Harbour Cricket Club. Now, the planning group was formed about 3 years ago, subsequent to the building and redevelopment of the Victor Harbour Oval. Since day one, the thing that the group have said, and also the cricket club have said, is the moving of the Victor Harbour Oval nets. Unfortunately, all other users of the complex would not allow us to shift our nets because it interrupted their use. As of March, the last meeting, they finally agreed that the road that goes past the nets should be shifted. Why? Because that road, which wasn't there 20 years ago, is 4 feet away from 8, 9, 10-year-olds running around trying to play cricket nets. They recognise that the safety issue of it is paramount, but trying to come up with a reason. Now, at the last meeting, they said that Andrew Comas commented that due to budget restrictions and design, that it's not likely to be built until 28, 29. I'm just wondering whether council and councillors, when this comes up, can put a fast track on it for safety reasons. That's the only reason I need to say.
Thank you, and I will have a look at that. So we've got some data, and Andrew left the organisation about a year ago, so probably a lot has changed since then. So I will definitely, I think there have been discussions. Jodie might be able to answer that one.
Thank you, Victoria. In our long-term financial plan, there is an allocation each year for reserve development, and the Oval is considered a reserve. In the 25-26 budget, some of the work at the Victor Harbour Oval will include putting some water storage tanks in to help hold the recycled water there. But in the future years beyond that, there's currently over $200,000 each year in the asset management plans for reserve development. So some of that money may be able to be used towards design and construction.
We just want to bring it forward, bring it to your attention, Council.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that forum is a great way of doing it, and we've got note of it tonight, so thank you very much for that.
Can I ask, if the council is so sure that the precinct is what the community wants, why they don't do a formal referendum or a vote seeking from the community?
Well, you can ask your elected members, they can do that, but obviously there's a cost at doing that, and
Of course.
I would say
that... cost if people are getting something they don't want.
So that's something the council can give some consideration to.
Well, it seems strange to me that such a controversial issue, which has been a controversial issue for the community for some time, has really only had no formal input at a vote level.
Mr. Clemson.
Yeah, it's been great tonight to come here and realise the council likes so much feedback. How about if the council, when someone wants to ask a question from the gallery, gets more than 30 seconds to do a preamble? Is that a bit of feedback, or...?
Yep, no, thank you. Again, I think you were privy to the consultation, the discussion when they amended their code of practice for meeting procedures. So,
and now you're getting a bit of feedback. I'm sure people have made so many comments tonight, which hopefully you'll take into account. And this is now another bit of feedback.
Thank you.
Let's have a bit more than 30 seconds when you ask a question from the gallery. Is that something maybe the councillors will consider? Miss Mayor?
The council has considered that a couple of months ago when the meeting procedures were changed to reflect that, and the council voted for 30 seconds. Part of the reason for that is because we would get people from the gallery coming and having, it's not all, a lot of councils don't have questions from the gallery. We actually allow questions from the gallery and encourage people to put in questions. But they are questions, and when you get people coming and having a very long preamble and using that to have a debate with council rather than actually ask their questions, then it gets quite difficult. So I think the reason behind council voting to have a 30-second preamble, and I usually let people go over the 30 seconds, but if they start going on and on and on in a debate, I will stop them and I will say, what is your question from the gallery?
I've got a gentleman sitting next to me who wasn't really allowed much more than 30 seconds, but in terms of other councils not allowing questions from the gallery, well, I beg to contradict. When we came to Victor Harbour, we moved from Cowra in New South Wales. And every month, you could go up and ask any question you liked of the council.
I'm talking about I'm
No,
talking about
seven,
South Australian councils. There may be different legislation that I'm not aware of in the eastern states that allows that, but in South Australia, it's the will of the council if they would like to have questions from the gallery. And more than happy to answer any questions, but it's not a debate between council and the gallery. Thank you.
I'll make a final comment.
Yes, and then I'll make the final comment, so I'll let you do it first, Peter.
To wrap up the other one. The gentleman back behind me here is the only positive person at this stage who said that the young people need the facilities such as the basketball and gymnastic facility, and we've been waiting for many, many years, 20 years or so, he said. Why is it then that with over 1,000 members in the Basketball Association and some 400 members, and I'm including then on top of that, parents and so on and so forth, did not say yes, yes, yes and give us their 1,500, 2,000 comments, we need it, we desperately need it. Why is it that the Gymnastic Association don't want to even be involved in the project and 50% or they're 50-50 with the basketball?
I guess you've got to catch up with the times too, Peter, because we're actually having some fantastic stakeholder meetings, and I'm having regular meetings with gymnastics and basketball in regards to the facility.
And pickleball?
And pickleball and the high schools. But I guess you're seeing one element of it. I think people will see what they want to see and they'll hear what they want to hear and they'll block out all the other stuff. But it is a complex, challenging facility or project that not everyone's going to support, and I don't think there's been a project I have been involved in my 30 years in local government that we've had unanimous support for within a community. You can't, it's a balance, but the work that I've been doing with those groups now, they are very much on board, and yes, they're still wanting to do their due diligence. They're providing all their data and information around their memberships and their needs and looking at the ways in which they can activate that space. The one thing they're very clear about is they don't want a Belgravia operating it. They would much rather have council operating it so they can have input. And we do have many young people in our community that require facilities and support from the council. But also, I agree with you. Why is it that we have the same group of people providing feedback? I can literally name all of you in this room, which I have been doing, because you are the regular ones that give that feedback. And why do the others stay quiet? Why is silence golden? I don't know, and if I had an answer for that and I had more people participating in council's engagement, I would love it. But people become complacent. They don't get involved and they don't say anything, but does that mean they think it's good, think it's bad, or don't really care, or just want council to get on and do the job that they were elected to do? I don't know. It's a very good question. I'd love to know the
They don't
answer.
speak because of hopeless resignation. They've been there, tried and got nowhere. Not that they're not apathetic. They weren't anyway, once.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I am going to close the forum because it is time. We're past 7 o'clock. We're 10 past 7 or 5 past 7. But I just wanted to say thank you for those that are now left because a number have already gone.
Victoria, you said before, I had another question. You said that we'll go through all those answers and then come back to you. You haven't done that. You've avoided
Well,
me.
Andrew, if you want to stick to your question, then ask me your question.
Right. In this year's budget, there's $16 million for asset expenditure on assets.
14.6.
Okay, 14.6. I thought it was 16. Does the council have the capacity to implement that figure? In the past, we've heard that the council struggles to be able to do more than $10 million of capital works. Do you have the capacity to do $16 million or 14.6?
Yep, no, very good question. So we've actually had to look at that in terms of what we would do in-house and what we would contract, and noting some of it is subject to grant funding. But yes, we wouldn't be putting it forward to council if we didn't have the capacity. And some of those projects are detailed design and some of them are delivery of construction. Some are also split over 2 financial years. So thank you for that question. Any others?
Just one last question, please.
Yep.
Today, I wanted to see a recording of the live stream of the last general council meeting. Wouldn't load up. Is this got anything to do with the computer system?
No, nothing to do with the computer system. Could be to do with the internet access, but yeah, no, it has nothing to do with the computer system. It's put up onto YouTube, so it's not connected with our Tech One computer
Okay,
system.
so I should have been able to see that
Yeah.
recording last
Yeah,
week.
but I also do know there's some significant issues with Telstra down here at the moment in terms of internet connections, so you're probably not an orphan in that space.
All right, thank you.
No, thank you. All right, I am conscious of time.
Victoria, I'm going to say this. You've done bloody good tonight.
Thank you, Terry. That means a lot to me.
And believe me,
It's a small
no, you've
round
done
of
pretty good.
applause.
So I must congratulate you on that. However, we disagree.
I know.
We agreed to disagree.
And I respect that very much, so thank you. All right, thank you very much, everyone, for your time. If you need it, grab a cookie on the way out, but if not, drive safely home, and thank you for your time tonight.
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.